Greetings and happy salutations. I am totally not Sin Wicked, and this is Lesbian Talk.
Today our special guest will be honorary lesbian Sin Wicked. No, he's not here today.
Although, if you find the wonderful drag queens in space movie, Vegas in Space, the director sounds just like Sin Wicked, so it's wonderful to listen to the commentary.
He should be used in some way. So if you're Sin, write the show. No, Sin Wicked, and so kind of like to make fun of that somehow.
It'd be a very, very obscure joke.
It would be, but... So anyway, it's Lesbian Talk, episode 31. How are you, my dear?
I think this episode should be called Sessions 1 to 8 Were Crap.
No, because I have to name I name the episode based on something that we say. So when I go...
8 were crap.
I don't know. Anyway... So, besides that, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm, absolutely terrified that a thunderous curse upon, nature might be approaching Northern Ireland, in the form of someone called Omega and Academia.
Oh, I was about to say, what is it, like, supposed to rain or something? Yeah, I'm actually, I'm going to be over in Northern Ireland again. A very short trip. I'm flying out Halloween night, and then I'm really only going to be there for a few days to have a college visit to meet with the head of the course that I want to take, and, hopefully that will go well.
It's a shame that you're going to come, like, the day after Halloween, because Halloween is the biggest day in the Derry calendar.
I know, but there was no way to arrange it with work, and also it would have been like $100 more expensive to fly out the day before, so.
Completely understand. For an entire audience to know, Derry is so into Halloween that Sunset Heights, the Derry set and made action film, it's dystopian after the apocalypse type Derry where everything's just the same way as it was before, but that's not important right now.
The fish and chips are apocalyptic.
But even then, and the place is run by gangs, and apparently there's like rape squads and shit, I don't know. But Halloween is still a big fucking deal. The city loves it. It was the only day that it was one of the few days when you had a bunch of people with their identities covered in the middle of the city centre and places didn't get set on fire.
For your town, that's an accomplishment.
Yeah, it is.
Although, I tell you what, so I have a month to get all this information ready, so I have to pull all my transcripts, and I don't know how regular teenagers handle this, because, oh my god, like, I took the SATs in, like, the late 90s, and so I called to try to get my scores pulled, and she's like, well, do you remember what your registration number was? I was like, no. Do you remember when you took it? Anywhere from maybe 95 to 97? And she goes, okay, well, let me take some more information. So I was Googling while I was talking to her, and I was like, 97, it was 97. She's like, are you sure? And I said, yeah, because, see, don't laugh, but I had the Marcy Playground song Sex and Candy in my head for the entirety of the SAT, and their debut album came out in February of 97. Sorry about that. And she's like, no, whatever works. So I got a text saying that they couldn't pull my transcripts from Temple University because a hold was placed, so I had to call the registrar's office, and they were like, oh, well, you never took your federal loan counseling exit interview when, you didn't come back for that next semester. So you have to go online and take this exit interview. So I had to read this whole bunch of stuff about how would you expect to pay off your loan and the penalties for not... This is on $1,300 that the state gave me that I paid back in 2002. So I paid this back over a decade later, and they wanted all my parents' information, I was like, just send me my transcript. But how are you?
Those people be silly.
Well, I mean, they gotta do what they gotta do, so... But anyway, before we talk the whole time about...
Yeah, because the last thing the audience wants is yet more discussions of us talking about the UK. We had enough of that last time.
Exactly. What was our word from last week? Or last time?
Before that, which was not really to be measured in weeks. The word was, I believe, asylum.
Woo! Which can mean anything from to seek refuge at a certain place, or a hospital, or like kind of mental institution, or somebody who makes bad videos.
Or It could be the name of a not very good horror film that Colin Baker was in that I have never managed to find a copy of, and I really want to find it. It was really fucking important to me. I want to find this horror movie called Asylum that Colin Baker was in, because I've seen pictures of it, and Colin Baker's got like a mustache, he's playing like this guy in charge of an asylum, and I really want to see it.
We should tweet at him.
Apparently it's not out in VHS or DVD. I'm like, God damn it. And every time, it's one of these films that has a name that's just generic enough that every time you try to find a copy of it, there's like 1,500 other films with the same name. I had the same trouble trying to find the 1950s, I think it was 50s, or was it 40s? There was a remake of The Most Dangerous Game called The Game of Death. Mm-hmm. And when you try to find copies of that, it's like, oh look, here's a film, here's the Bruce Lee film, and then here's a Steven Seagal film, and here's a Jet Li film, and it's like 15 million. If you're making martial arts films, please stop calling it derivations of Game of Death. It just makes it hard for people who want humans hunting humans movies, the sane people.
Or I tried to find that movie for you that was done in the 90s, and it was an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, but it was done by filming feral cats in some European city, and then these British voice actors dubbed over it. But it was only ever released to theaters for a short time, never out on VHS. Never out on DVD. It's like the holy grail of...
Yeah, I so want to see that. It's called L or something?
I think it's called Romeo.Juliet. And it was done in 1990. But anyway, Asylum.
Yeah, if anyone has a copy of that, you bastard, mail a copy to us I suppose Lupa and Owen Citizen would be a decent crossover for them.
No, that's first. We'll see it, and then we'll vet it, and then we'll pass it on to Lupa if we think that...
Because she's reviewed stuff with dubbed cats and dogs, and the fact that it's Romeo and Juliet and it's British thespians, I'm sure Kyle would ejaculate all over it.
Ew! If it's the only copy, he damn well can't. He can ejaculate on something else.
Okay, well, we'll make sure he knows that. Someone tweet at Kyle and tell him he's not allowed to ejaculate over a copy of Romeo.Juliet. You get double points if he has no idea what you're talking about.
That's most of Twitter for everybody. But anyway, Asylum. Whenever I hear the word asylum, I think of Byberry, which was a mental hospital in Philly, and I think it's the oldest one in the country. And it started in the 1700s, and it was called then Philadelphia Area Mental Asylum or something really weird and crazy like that.
That is a very sexy title. They were thinking about that for minutes.
No, how old hospitals would be asylum for the disposition of the underprivileged, they'll have these big long Dickensian sounding names. But eventually it just became Philadelphia Area Mental Hospital, and I don't know when it was rebranded to Byberry, but they did a film about it, I want to say in the 30s, about how shameful people were treated there. And it shut down in the late 70s. But the building, the huge complex, existed up until about 2006 when they finally tore it down, and was a really great place for urban explorers. So if you ever want to see some really creepy, asylum photos, just Google Byberry, Philadelphia, and photos.
Do you want to talk about your personal connection to Byberry? Because, guys, this is like the plot of a horror movie.
It's not really the plot of a horror movie. Okay,
it's the backstory to a plot of a generic horror movie.
All right, so my parents they're both psychologists. They're PhDs, they're both doctors, and they met while they were both working at Byberry. This is obviously before it closed. So yes, my parents met at a mental institution. But
you could see that as the backstory to a horror movie. It's like, these two doctors working in this infamous mental hospital, they met and fell in love and had a child, and later on that child was the reincarnated souls of all of the pain of the people who were wrongfully imprisoned in the asylum, and they ghosts.
Well, they weren't doctors at the time.
Oh,
my dad hadn't done his dissertation yet. My mom did her dissertation a few years after I was born. So.
Well, still, it would be a generic backstory for a horror movie.
I see. Well, you have a personal connection to an asylum. You went to school in one.
Oh yeah, the school I went to in Derry, they opened the school, it was a new school, and the grounds they found for it were this old, Victorian asylum building in the middle of, what is still a mental institution. This grounds of the healthcare park, and they don't keep anyone dangerous there, but occasionally you would find, people who, staying there or whatever, wandering into the school, and It was an old Victorian building, and they since moved out of there and went into a new one.
That's kind of highly creepy, I gotta tell you, honey.
It really is. And it was not a very nice building to begin with. But, because it was not a very big building anyway, then because it was a new school, as they got new, every year went on, they would have an extra chunk of students there. So they were like, oh no, what are we gonna do? Because we're running out of space. So they're like, just fuck it, we'll just create porta cabins, and we will use them sort of like for classrooms outside.
Actually, yeah, some schools do that. They'll have these trailer classrooms where there's no heat.
There was like a sea of trailer classrooms all over the place. And, or you were in the evil haunted place. Oh, that's where that's the school I saw the ghost in, even though I don't believe in ghosts.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, I think you told that story on here before. You were like, I saw the ghost, but I don't believe it.
Oh yeah, my logic for not believing ghosts after seeing them is very simple. Either I was mistaken or hallucinating or something like that, or everything we understand about the nature of reality is wrong, and I think it is more likely that I was mistaken.
I think that you're probably right. See?
I'm being all logical and shit.
Ooh, logic.
Bring in the logic.
But let's lead into something that, for once, I suggested a movie that we talk about. And
this is terrible. Never let her do that.
Shut up. No. This is a movie that I saw on Netflix years ago that I added to my instant queue and promptly never watched. Then one night I was like, I should probably watch this. It's been on my instant queue for like 4 years. And I watched it, and then I said, you know what, we should talk about this in Lesbian Talk. Will you watch it? And the hypothesis that I'm coming into the movie with, and if you've seen Session 9, or if you haven't, I mean, obviously spoilers, so there you go.
Yeah, skip the next 15 minutes if you don't want spoilers.
Or, just watch it right now. Like, pause the podcast, go watch it, and come back.
Go, we'll wait.
So anyway.
Someone's watching it, honey, we can't.
They paused us. In their universe, we're paused.
Okay.
Okay, so my thesis on Session 9 is that Session 9 would have been an infinitely more scary horror movie if they ditched the supernatural element of the plot.
I thought maybe we should explain to the audience exactly what's going on in Session 9.
I know, but I wanted to freeze that to you first, which would lead into our discussion.
Okay. Session 9, it's Danvers Mental Institution, and you got a bunch of guys are, renovating it, and, shit goes down that may or may not be various things.
It's got a pretty obvious twist. That's obvious, the second you realize, oh, it's a twist. But part of it is, so these workmen have underbid to strip all the asbestos and all the, the harmful lead piping and crap out of this old asylum building. So I guess the county can use it for something else. And the leader of this crew underbid. He totally underbid. He said, yeah, we can get the job. Just give us the contract. I really need the contract. So he underbid on it to get the contract, and he kind of doesn't have enough manpower to actually get the job done in a week. And it's the main character is a Scottish actor, but I couldn't tell if he was meant to be putting on a Scottish accent or they made him put on an Irish accent. Oh
no, that's a Glaswegian accent. He was using an actual Scottish accent.
Okay, that's cool. But so so there are people in it that look like other famous people. It actually was filmed at that asylum because the director used to drive by it every day, and it gave him the idea. And the reason it's called Session 9 is one of the workers is fucking off and not doing his work, and he finds some old case studies and some recordings of clinical sessions and stuff like that, which technically it's a violation of HIPAA, the Health Information Accountability and Portability Act, that they're left lying around, but whatever. And so he listens to all these sessions, and it's with this girl who, this woman who has multiple personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder. And obviously some horrible thing had happened, and the therapist is trying to get out of her what happened and talking to different personalities. So that's a separate framing device. While the guy that's running this crew, the members of his crew are fighting. One's his nephew that can't do anything right. It's just, stuff's breaking down, and eventually shit gets real, and they end up dead. But they kind of play it out to make you think that the main character, he's having issues with his wife, he's a new father and stuff, everyone makes this big deal about, oh, was he okay? A new father and everything. But early on, you realize that he's murdered his wife and child. You realize that. So along the time, you pretty much guess the twist. But then you're kind of made to be led to believe that he did this because he was exposed to some supernatural entity it's never really clear. Like, he goes into a dark room and then he hears some whispering, and it's the same kind of whispering that's on the tape. And it kind of makes it seem as though he's been possessed by some remnant of whatever it was in the girl with multiple personalities that made her kill someone. It was just... See, the way it was framed was pretty claustrophobic. Because, they talk about how if you even get a bit of asbestos in your lungs, you'll die of mesothelioma, and how kind of stressful and frightening that is. And there's one guy the young kid is terribly, terribly afraid of the dark. So there's a scene where he ends up in the bowels of the asylum, and the generator fails, because they're running everything off a generator. And that's pretty frightening, him getting out of there. But I think if they just try to ditch the supernaturalness of it, the plot itself was pretty scary.
It reminded me of the I forgot his name, George Clark movie that I did an interview for, The Last Light. But that was one guy by himself, and it was even less subtle about what was going on. Because it was like, just ghosts be everywhere, roar!
Oh, and it had, what's his face, David Caruso in it.
It really confused me, because David Caruso, Ian Glenn was apparently the main character, but then also David Caruso was always there, and I was like, are you sure he's not the main character? He's the guy from, CSI.
Well, spoilers, until he dies at the end, I was convinced that he was the bad guy. He was the murderer.
Well, it's David Caruso. We can only hope.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I did prefer the original version where they had, aliens involved. It was called Session 9 from Outer Space.
Would you stop that? No, but what do you think of my hypothesis? That if they had just been this guy always was losing it. He had lost it. He accidentally killed his wife and baby, and that's the guilt of it was eating away at him until he kind of, totally slipped and then just slaughtered the rest of his team.
It sounds solid. It sounds very, very solid. It's the film. I find it difficult to talk about in massive amounts of it. It's the sort of thing that if I was doing a review of, I could do a short review of, but I would really be sort of pushed to find lots of interesting things to say about. It's very, very competently made. Nice to see subtlety in horror.
Very atmospheric.
Yeah, it is nice of them to not spell out exactly what's going on. Even if it's supernatural, they're not entirely sure what the nature of the supernatural thing is.
Well, I think they should have worked out that part altogether, but still used the guy listening to her sessions as kind of like a framing device, as I don't think this is a word, but like a parallelity to what the guy was going through. Because she killed for some unknown reason, that was known only to her. She snapped and killed her brother, and he snapped and killed his wife and child. And reason is never, and at the end they cop out, they're like, oh, I killed him because I love to kill and I love blood, says this other random dark personality. But they could have written that part out and just had it been a kind of parallel to him slowly losing it.
Yeah. It was...
Shut up, I'm clever. I came up with a clever theory. You're always one with a clever film theory, so there.
Well, I'm not saying that I'm not saying you're wrong. Having it, being not at all supernatural may well have been much more effective.
Yeah, I think that, and that's a lot of why I don't like to watch horror movies, because so few of them are actually frightening. You have oh no, blood, oh no, special effects, here's a liver, there you go. And it's just so over the top that it's funny. Or you have stuff that attempts to be scary, oh no, it's Dracula, it's totally scary. And it's not scary at all. It's just, you try too hard and it comes out stupid. I like conceptual horror, where you're whoa, think about that, yeah, that's fucking scary.
With horror is a unique genre because it's got so many subcategories to it, which are completely different from each other. Which
then you have that kind of horror like blood, someone's naked, look at her tits, the end.
Yeah, there's no other genre that has so many subcategories that are so opposed to each other in it, because you've got the the stuff that's actually out to frighten you, which, if done competently, is very, 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 very good. Then you got the comedy horror type stuff, which is not actually supposed to scare you. It's actually like should be a subcategory of comedy, really. Then you've got the stuff which is gore just for gore's sake, and which is perfectly valid. If people say that gore for gore's sake is bad in some way, then I will take exception to that. But these things are all very different. And,
well, it's just why I can't claim to be an actual horror fan, because so little of what I actually see is horrifying to me.
Well, maybe I can suggest you some of the conceptually horrifying films.
Like The Orphanage, El Orfanato? Jesus and Christ. I slept with the light on for like a week.
Well, there's quite a lot of films like that out there. You just gotta, but with any genre, that sort of stuff is harder to find. You know? And when it comes to being a film obsessive, you can either be, you can either take your, you can either be really into the type of film that you like, which in your case, when it comes to horror is only the conceptual stuff, or you can sort of bite the bullet and develop an appreciation for the stuff that's not so good, which is what I do.
Yeah, but I value writing because, I'm a writer. Like, even though I'm not going to discuss intricacies of plot, because I still want to end up doing this, I came up with a horror novel that, you could pull off to be pretty horrifying with a perfectly rational scientific explanation at the end. Because I think that'd be pretty cool. Because you're like, oh no, it must have been a demon or ghosts or the devil or oh, wow, that is a pretty good rational scientific explanation for it. Huh, yeah, it sucks that all those people died before we figured that out.
Yeah, I'd love to see more stuff like that.
Is there a thing for that, rationalist horror?
No, there's a couple of films, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but they do exist.
Well, good.
It's just because Supernatural is, unfortunately, much more interesting to look at.
But it can be done so much better. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being an elitist. Like, I don't even like to read bad horror. And if I'm like, this is stupid, then I won't want to read it. I mean, that's why people like Stephen King are so great, because his short stories, some of them aren't very long, but they're, you stop and think about that. You're like, holy fuck. Yeah, that's horrible. It's a good thing that'll never happen to me, right? Like that one story that's in Nightmares and Dreamscapes, where like that many jointed finger, that with all the fingers and they all have like 6 joints on them, like this hand comes out of this guy's sink drain, and it only ever does it when he's in the bathroom, and he starts to think he's going insane, but he's like terrified of it. That's horrifying. Anyway, that's what I have to say.
I think you got really decent points there. It's going to bother me. I'm going to try and think of some of the, as you say, rationalist horror, because there is stuff. I know there's stuff out there. I just can't think of any right now.
So if you know about rationalist horror, right, Joe, and we should have Cryptic Psych on sometime, because he just knows like everything about horror ever.
This is true. But if you want sort of like supernatural things with a rationalist bent, there was I forgot the name of it. There was a British TV show where it was these people investigate sort of strange events, and they always work out the sort of the non-supernatural part with it. Jonathan Creek, that was it.
Well, there was one show that I added on Netflix because it looked pretty cool. It's called Fact or Fake, and it was like ex-FBI agents like look at viral videos and stuff like that. Like, it's totally Bigfoot, and they're like, it's totally not, and we proved how. But it wasn't as in-depth as I'd wanted it to be. It was actually kind of hokey. I was like, oh, I didn't think this was... I thought this was going to be better than it was.
And there's Twisted But True.
Yeah, I like that, though, because that's like actual for real science.
Yeah, the first season was less good, more hokey. The second one, they really brought up the rational stuff.
And also, they have Michael from Vsauce as consultant, as expert on the brain, so that's kind of cool. I was like,
indeed,
it's him. Also, that got greenlit for a 3rd season on Science Channel, so hopefully that'll be done soon.
I'm glad to hear it.
If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, it's a show for Science Network or Science Channel. I don't know which one it is, called Twisted But True, and it's like dark stories of science, like how they used to pay women to like paint with radioactive materials to make glow in the dark clocks and watches for the war. And then when they all started dying of horrific cancer, they were like, oh, everything's fine. They don't have some kind of horrible cancer. Radiation is good. It's good for you. Just like cigarettes.
Yeah. Knowing as much as I do about history, and I've noticed all the times in the past when people were like, look at this is amazing, this is wonderful and brilliant, and then later on it's revealed that this is slowly killing anyone who uses it. This has happened quite a bit in history. I'm really wondering what today's version of that is. I'm quite sure there's something that is really ubiquitous right now that is actually causing us harm and killing us, and we're not going to know about it for another 40 years.
Well, if you believe the conspiracy people on the internet, it's Splenda.
Could be Splenda, if they're right.
We talked about that before, where I had the woman who thought that you commit element synthesis and generate pure chlorine atoms in your body when you eat Splenda.
Yeah, that...
Reference our episode, Let's Make Chlorine Together.
That's a bit silly. But the, like, one pretty thing as spectacular as that, it's just something that's causing us some sort of sickness, and it'll take a long time for science to recognize it. You know, I suppose it could be wireless. You know, this sort of radiation, which we're not really used to, is causing some sort of effect that we might not know about for a long time. I have no idea. But my own personal favorite for a thing that might do this, you know, the magic eraser sponges. You get these.
Oh yeah, the Mr. Clean magic erasers. They're amazing.
Yeah, we have them over here as well, and because they're so good, because they seem to be so useful, I'm almost convinced that these are going to be the things that are going to be revealed to be toxic and causing, like, horrible tumors in 50 years' time.
Well, I doubt that, because do you know how they work, honey? It's not a chemical, they're just they're microabrasives. So they're actually, they're taking off the stain, you know, on a very, like, not a molecular level, but on a very, very, very small level that's not abrading the actual surface.
Well,
I looked it up on the internet. I'm like, what magic is this? And I found out how it worked, and I was like, oh, that's not as impressive. I thought it was some kind of chemical.
It's going to... Actually, I find it more impressive than if it's a chemical, but it's going to micro-abrase our lungs until they melt.
Well, no, because it's not aerosolized. Well, actually, honey, I did get little small abrasions on my... I mean, it didn't go very deep. It was only on, like, the first layer of skin when I was cleaning up the apartment and using it in the kitchen. So, yeah, I did get little micro-abrasions, but... They were really small, and they closed up like the next day because they weren't very deep.
Yeah, they're really useful. But I think there's going to be something like that. We're sort of overdue with that, and because
overdue for a plague.
Well, it's not so much a plague. It's like if
you die of the plague doctor comes and hits you with a stick. We decided this. We were at Mary King's Close.
It's a mixture of something being fairly new. So people haven't really picked up on the cause and effect of it yet.
Raspberry flavor.
Mixed with the fact that people who make profit out of stuff will fight tooth and nail to make sure that they can continue making it, you know, who gives a shit about what happens to people who use it.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I'll concede you on that one.
So I'm fairly sure there's something like that is causing some sort of damage that we don't know about, and we will know about it one day. And we will look back and go under, why the fuck did we have so many aluminium cans about? Oh man, that was so dangerous. They were just waiting to mutate into giant robotic terriers and kill us.
Robotic terriers.
Yeah. Robo-dog. Dun 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 dun.
Robotic terriers. Well, we'll be right back after our music break. Enjoy.
Dead or alive, you're.
Enjoy the dulcet tones of Tony Goldmark. We'll be right back.
I'm Scrooge McDuck. I got a bin full of money. All of it is mine and none of it is yours. I'm Scrooge McDuck. I'm a wealthy old bastard. I pay my own nephews 30 cents an hour. I was born in Scotland to a flat broke family. I made my first time cleaning crap on my shoe. And did I mention I'm a gigantic talking duck? I'm older than hell and I'm richer than God.
He is Scrooge McDuck.
I'm richer than you.
He is Scrooge McDuck.
I'm yours and rich.
He is Scrooge McDuck.
And I've hired Michael Eisner to be my personal bitch. We're paying the musicians and stock options, right? Good. I'm Scrooge McDuck. My hobbies include swimming through cash like a goddamn dolphin, hosing down protesters in my Asian sweatshops, and going to the bathroom for 18 hours. I'm Scrooge McDuck. My brain's made of dirt. I'm surrounded by money, and it's not for you. I once ran from Duckburg to Glasgow to Jupiter and back in 12 seconds. And I'd like to see that pain in the ass son of a crap nugget. Flintheart Glumgle, try that. He is a dumb bastard who... Excuse me. Choking on a gold nugget. I found Genghis Khan's crown, Jason's gold fleece, a philosopher's stone, and the keys to your mother. I was born in Scotland. My dad's name is Fergus. He's dead, and so am I as well. I once bought a business that only made factories, but then I went nuts and I burned Scrooge McCruck. A Greyhound bus just crashed through my wall and I don't even care. I'm Scrooge McBuck. I'm 9 million years old. I'm the 17th Beatle and I think I'm drunk. I smoke crack thrice with the president of Switzerland, and you can kiss my ducktail because you're not me. I'm richer than you.
He's Scrooge McDuck.
I'm more than rich.
He's Scrooge McDuck.
And I'm hired Michael Eisner.
Be his personal. Be his personal. Be his personal. Be his personal bitch.
Shut up and take it like a man, Jew boy.
Well, that certainly was my favorite song by Tony Goldmark, otherwise known as Some Jerk with a Camera. That is truly the best one he has ever done.
Woo.
Oh, yeah.
So now it's time for the best part of our show, if you ask him about it. Now, he was a little crabby. Get it? A little crabby. He's going to pinch my toe about that. Because we didn't have him on last week, but it's time...
If you're lucky,
That's
if you're
true.
unlucky, he'll pinch you somewhere else. And if you're very, very unlucky, you'll enjoy it.
I don't want you to talk like that anymore. It's kind of creeping me out.
Oh.
It's like you can't have a sexual relationship with your sidekick. That's like incest. It's reviewer incest.
Fairly sure it's happened before.
You're probably right. Like someone on Take What Dick's done it. But anyway, it's time for Giovanni's Trivia Fact. Giovanni, are you here?
Yeah, boss, I'm here, and don't worry, I would never touch you some places you would consider inappropriate or that would make you uncomfortable.
Hey, Giovanni, I have a question that you can only answer.
Yes, what can I do for you, Holland?
How come you can only talk whenever Omega's not talking?
Do the math. I mean, seriously, are you seriously asking that? For God's sakes, this is not Farm Sense anymore. You have iPods now. Get with the program. So anyway, sorry everyone that you missed me last week, but I didn't go to the UK. I stayed home and was responsible. So, but yeah, I'm back this week. Hi, how you doing? But anyway, my trivia question is, what effect does alcohol have on antibiotics? Why, not at all. It's true. The idea that it would interfere with them came from the anti-STD crusaders just after World War II. They wanted people to take antibiotics to get rid of their VD, you know? You know, lobsters don't get STDs, just saying.
Okay.
It's true.
I'm
Have you
sure...
ever seen a lobster in, the clinic with the clap? No, you haven't. No.
Oh, but I've seen them in the clinic with the click.
That was so bad. That was, specious. Anyway, you guys, I'm out of here. Goodbye, Major Dominican Public. See you next week.
You're so mean to him. For a few weeks you were being nice, and I thought that, you had buried the hatchet.
I did... Well, we buried one of his smaller claws, but it didn't stick.
So, anyway, now it's time for, apparently, a popular feature on our show called One Time at the Store, alternatively It Happened at the Store, sometimes a story from the store, depending on what mood I'm in. But, if you've been paying attention, I've been working for a large chain bookstore for the better part of a decade, and I have seen it all, and I'll be seeing more of it because next Sunday I have my first shift at my fourth store, which is the one that I live nearby to.
That was a short story.
That wasn't the story. No, stop it. Behave yourself. But pretty much this is another idea that came from a discussion that we had on the Booksellers Facebook group. And it's about people who, they know what they want, but they don't know what they want. Like people that, they'll come up and I think we've touched on this, before and said, oh yeah, I needed that book that was over there 3 years ago and it was white. Can't you help me with that? Or the person that comes up to you and says, I need the original version of Shakespeare. And you're like, oh, here, and you give them Shakespeare. No, in his original language. And you're like, oh.
Well, then there's an answer to that, honey. Now, depending on whether you're a Star Trek geek or just a languages geek, you can offer them in either Klingon or German.
We don't... Okay, well, first of all, I think we only have Shakespeare in English and Spanish, but why would you think that we carry it in Klingon?
Because you can buy Shakespeare in Klingon.
We could probably order it to store, but that would imply that there are so many people who buy Shakespeare in Klingon at our local store that we're modeled for it. Meaning that when we sell a copy, we'll automatically be sent another one by distribution because we're modeled for it.
Well, my point is that the Shakespeare in Klingon obviously comes from Star Trek VI, but it was based on a joke where you have actually got real people who are convinced that Shakespeare was originally written in German. So they took this idea, which is ludicrous, and they put it in Star Trek VI and made it so the Klingons actually believed that Shakespeare was Klingon.
Ah.
That's the gag.
I see.
And I am
What a
sending you-
hilarious gag that is. Ha. Ha.
It was funny in the film, and it made sense if you knew this backstory. So yeah, but here's an image you can use in the episode.
I've just been sent an image of a link to Amazon with Klingon Hamlet. I'll just tell you.
Yeah, it's the entire version translated into the actual Klingon language because it is a fully formed language.
I see. But we've got a lot of people that will argue with you about what things are actually called, and this comes up every so often on the Facebook group, that you just get some amazing implications and some amazing translations of things, like when the Michael Frey book, A Million Little Pieces, was really hot before he was proved to be a fraud. One guy came in and he's like, I need that new book I saw on Oprah, Bajillion Pieces. And I said, do you mean 1,000,000 little pieces? Or he's like, no, a bajillion pieces. And I took him up front and I pulled it off the bestseller and said, here. And he goes, no, it's called a bajillion pieces. And I spent 20 minutes looking up a book that didn't exist. Bajillion pieces. Like, I mean, I've seen other things like 1,000,000 pieces, 100,000,000 pieces. My first week, The Secret Life of Bees in paperback was on the bestseller list. And this guy comes up, he's like, I need The Secrets of the Bees. And I said, you mean The Secret Life of Bees? No, The Secrets of the Bees. And I was like, uh-huh. So I took him up and I gave him the book, and he's like, what the hell is this? And I said, it's The Secret Life of Bees. It's, it's really hot right now. And he was like, no, this isn't about bees at all. Because it's a fiction book. And I was like, well, it's not about bees. That's just the title. It's a metaphor for something. And he's like, I thought this was going to be all about what bees are doing, like when no one's looking. And I was like, well, I assume being bees? It's just... But I'm looking forward to a whole new bumper crop of really great questions and really odd explanations.
Ta, pa, sorry, ta, pa.
No,
ta,
stop reading
pa.
things in Klingon.
No, I'm sorry. I'm quoting to be or not to be in Klingon. No, ta, pa, ta, be. Which actually, literally translated into Klingons means to exist or not to exist, or to not exist.
So you see, everybody, this is what I have to deal with in my life.
Nerd.
But you're the one that's quoting Hamlet in Klingon. You have no right to call me anything.
Nerd.
So, what were we going to talk about for the second half of our show today?
We're going to talk about something that, well, it's sort of like going to be a postscript to something we did. Because when Omega was over, we did a bad thing. We did a bad thing. We did a bad thing. We watched all of the Police Academy movies. Now, we're not expecting for all of, or even any of our fans to have watched those vlogs, because each of them are about 20 minutes long, and there's, 7 of them, so that's over 2 hours worth of videos. But we're going to discuss the Police Academy movies, and basically...
Again!
They're a little bit of a time capsule between, the first one came out in 1984, and the seventh one came out in 1994. There was like a 3-year period when there weren't any, and they're a little bit of a time capsule of the changing changing times that they were made in.
So we're actually doing a critical examination of the changing phases of humor over time as exposed by the Police Academy movies.
Pretty much.
So that's fucking scholarly, that right there.
Because the first thing I always notice, this is not Police Academy related, but the first thing I noticed when watching the Ghostbusters movies, the first one has casual homophobia done by the heroes, and it has a lot of smoking. These are very, very easy things to spot. The second one has neither of these things. It just shows over the 5 years between 84 and 89 that there was a lot of mainstream comedy. It just shifted because of, and I hate to use the term, political correctness. But the Police Academy movies, they were made over this period as well, so you can actually watch it happening film by film. So, like in the first one, you have...
Well, that's kind of interesting because when I saw The Exorcist, when I saw the digitally remastered version, I told my dad that I'd seen it. He goes, oh, when I saw people falling down and throwing up and all this other kind of stuff, wasn't it horrifying? And I said, yeah, there's this one scene where, like, they're in the hospital, right? And the doctor at the hospital's like, can I talk to you out in the hallway? She's like, okay. And he goes to talk to her out in the hallway, and they both light up cigarettes in the hospital. So scary. And he's like, stop being such a smartass. Continue.
Okay.
You can continue.
Like in the first Police Academy. Okay, the obvious thing to talk about when you're talking about homophobia in the Police Academy movies is the Blue Oyster. It is meant to be a homophobic joke, basically connecting gay men with rapists. That's the origin. It came out First Police Academy came out not long after Cruising, a couple of years. That is what the joke. That is what the joke is about. Now, personally, I'm not offended by it. I'm as queer as anything. I'm not offended by it. I think it's actually a very funny joke, and the way they did a double subversion because it's these big biker gay guys. Oh my god! Because you got the baker juxtaposing homosexuality with the masculine image, which was quite interesting for the time because the femme gay was much more common. Then you've got the fact that they're gonna rape them or beat them up. Oh no! And then they just turn out they're just gonna tango with them. It's a wonderful multi-layered joke that starts off very homophobic and gets less homophobic the more you think about it.
And we had this whole theory about how because the Blue Oyster is in, I think, out of 4 of the 7 movies?
The first 4. I really wish it had come back in 6.
So we had this, because it was always in a different place in the city, assuming that this was the same city. Or even sometimes when it was the next town over. But the thing is that it was kind of like a pocket dimension that, if you were wicked, were you forced to tango at the Blue Oyster. If you'd done nothing wrong, then you were not forced to dance.
Yeah, our views, the Blue Oyster is, and I have to say, I came up with this theory originally years ago. I mentioned it, and the other ones were all like, "That's amazing and so accurate." The Blue Oyster Bar is. The people who live inside the Blue Oyster Bar are not gay or even men. They're some sort of...
They actually do live there. If you die in the line of gayness, you live in the Blue Oyster.
Okay, yeah, that's one of our theory ideas about it, that possibly it is like a gay Valhalla. The other one is that they are actually some sort of spirits taking on the form of gay men. I'm not entirely sure which is more accurate. We'll have to watch the films again to work out which of these is more accurate.
That's okay.
But maybe there's a lesbian Blue Oyster out there. But the Blue Oyster sort of appears in our universe in different locations, and if you are heterosexual and male and you are evil, you are forced to tango, and that is your punishment
until you are redeemed.
Yeah, and they only ever harm the wicked. See, there's Proctor, Harris, the 2 asshole cops, a bunch of criminals. These are the ones who get punished in the Blue Oyster. Now. Hightower, Mahoney, and another cop were going in there. Hightower is not touched by the Blue Oyster because he is pure. Mahoney attempts to enter and gets thrown out immediately. They do violence on Mahoney because Mahoney is an asshole in the series. Mahoney does some actions that if the context was slightly different and Mahoney was not portrayed as the hero, that he would be one of the bad guys. If you look at the difference between Police Academy 1 and 3, some of the shit that the people do in some of the things that the cops do in the later Police Academy films when they are instructors is the sort of shit that the instructors did to them and in the first one, and they were portrayed as bad guys for doing it in the first one, but it's okay when their heroes do it later on. Right. It's a sort of film that actually the only reason actions are good or bad is because the main characters do it, not any outside force. We could really write a thing about the metaphysical ethics of Police Academy, couldn't we?
A whole entire thesis.
Yeah.
Maybe this is how I'll get into college. My dissertation on the changing themes and metaphysical implications of the ethics of the Police Academy movies. Ready, go.
We should suggest this to Leon Thomas, because he does...
Yeah, that would be right up his alley.
A Renegade Cut episode based on this. Although
write the show.
I do have a show that I'm working on, going to do occasionally, which is basically me doing a Renegade Cut type thing, and I got one already scripted and recorded but not edited, and I got another one.
Copyright infringement?
An idea for it. So I'll add this to my pile of ones to do. But anyway, over the years, the amount of homophobia that is okay in the Police Academy world, that comes from the heroes, culturally shifts. And by Police Academy 6, it's entirely gone.
Because you couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah. It's a wonderful example of showing culture changing, because although some of the films are good, some of them are utterly awful, and some of them are, so very bad that you wish that the director had been drowned in a bathtub before they were capable of speaking.
What?
Police Academy 7, honey.
But how often do you think I wish so-and-so would be drowned in a bathtub before any... What?
I wish we'd gone back in time and killed the director of Police Academy 7.
How does your brain work sometimes?
I don't think anyone would find that an ethically dubious statement. No, and if anyone does find that ethically dubious, they obviously have never seen Police Academy 7.
You're becoming, like, weird sometimes. If you have to go and kill Child Hitler, and then drown the director of the Police Academy movies in a bathtub.
Well, just because I'm directly making the connection between the evils of Hitler and the evils of Police Academy 7, you're acting as though that's extreme in some way.
So, continuing on?
Maybe. But because these films, although some of them are much better than others, they're all pretty much the same film. They're like
yes, that was very true.
They're redressings of the same film. Like, some of the characters change, the storyline a bit changes, but this is all surface. It is basically the same film with a different. It's like a video game where you can choose your design of car and then you can add a bunch of crap to it, change the color and shit. The Police Academy, it's the same car, it's just got a whole different set of bells and whistles.
That's very succinct.
So this gives you this lets you see how the culture around the films changes. How the first one, it was much grimier than the later ones.
I like the first one the best.
Oh, I'm not
because
saying,
it was the most original.
It was also the most realistic.
True.
And the film looked lived in. The other ones, then throughout the films until 5, they tended to look more and more plastic and silly and less not realistic and ridiculous, and ended up looking like 5, where it looked like a TV movie filmed in the 1980s. So it looked like a Jason Blade movie from Australia, done by Brian Trenchard Smith. Although
I will say that the digital remastering on the box set that you had, in the edition with the goodness of Robin the Minion's television set, was kind of weird. Because you knew it was from the 80s, so you knew it should be, like, grainy, but it was really good digitally, so it was weird.
Well, it was good remastering. But from 1 to 5, the world looked less lived in, looked less real. This is just how it altered. And
I think the Miami one was the worst for that.
Yeah, very. But it's really showing in the 70s, the watchword for cinema was realism. They were going for realism, they were going for grittiness. And then Star Wars kind of began the end of that. But then the 80s, they sort of continued with the realism for a bit. But then as the 80s went on and on and on, and everything got brighter and brighter and brighter. You can even look at this, across a lot of art. Now, this is, obviously I'm sort of going shorthand here, and I'm not painting everything with the same brush, but along a lot of cinematic culture stuff in the 80s, things get brighter and brighter and brighter until it gets to the later 80s, and then it begins to get darker and darker again. The early 90s is fairly bright to start with, and it gets darker and darker. It's probably till about 94 or so. I'm just talking about art, I'm not talking about real life. The world's just as bright as usual.
I mean, that's not, no, but I meant, like, do you mean all things, like, including music and stuff like that? Could that be the roots of grunge?
No, grunge has its origins in the 80s. What I mean is in visual art.
Oh, okay.
And like television, how things look. If you look at late 80s, just and count how many people are wearing bright primary colors, or even bright neon colors that aren't primary.
Oh yeah, neon was like all the shit when I was a kid in the 80s.
Yeah, I'm just saying that in the Police Academy movies, between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then it's getting more and more bright, more and more artificial, looking more neon, and then 5 is the top for that. It looks like a full-on, low-budget episode of Miami Vice.
Yeah, it looks like any second, like Jessica Fletcher would walk up and say something.
Yeah, and it looks like it was filmed as a TV movie rather than a cinema movie. Which ironically actually means that in some ways it looks more realistic, because videotape tends to film things more like it actually is, while film makes things look a particular way, which makes it look artificial, but that's the film look, and it looks professional to us when we watch a film. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yes.
The reason The Hobbit, people thought it looked like a TV movie or something, was because it actually made it look more like reality. 48 frames per second did that. And videotape reality shows and all, it's a weird paradox. The most cheap ways to make TV is also the one that actually make it look most realistic. But because we have a culture of we've had so many years of watching film in a particular way, we accept film as looking that way, and if film looks a different way, it looks wrong.
Well, it's kind of like how you guys would film stuff differently. Like, occasionally, PBS, when I was a kid, ran a lot of random BBC stuff, like late at night or early in the morning. And I would say, Mom, how come shows from England are real? And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, when you look at them, how come they're outside? Because however way you guys did it differently, your TV shows looked more realistic to me, so it looks like literally somebody was outside and filmed it. I couldn't figure out how it looked more real than the stuff that we filmed.
Now, that could be the difference in our cameras. Possibly we've got the ones that make things look more realistic. Or it could be the fact that British sitcoms and things would tend to use videotape for the inside shots, but then they would actually film on location, which at the time American sitcoms didn't do a lot of.
Well, this is mostly like, it wasn't Britcoms yet. It was mostly like Masterpiece Theater and like mystery and stuff like that.
It's probably our videotape cameras then. It's really, but okay. Police Academy 5.
I'm just not going to address that. Let's move on.
No, it's probably the cameras.
No, I believe you. It's the way that you said it. Like, that's, well, anyway.
But with Police Academy 5, it looks like a TV movie. It's bright colors and everything, so it looks like a really weird cross between more like real life and more artificial, which is it's a little bit of a head screw. I got the feeling it's some sort of it was some sort of an artistic choice by the director that worked so badly. Because back in the sixth one, they basically went for going for a Police Academy 2 Type 3 look, which is wonderful because Police Academy 2 and 3 were still very solid. And they looked like films.
And there was like a racial element in 1, too, that vanished. And that was kind of like a 70s holdover is what it felt like to me.
Yeah, the racism thing, where you have one of the characters. Well, they subtly explain that one of the two assholes who hangs around the police academy is a racist. They have him do two racial epithets, which is really weird because having a villain be a racist is not weird. It's quite usual. It's cinematic shorthand for that guy's an asshole, which is fine. But what's weird is that out of the two assholes, he was the one that was, at least in my interpretation, came across as slightly less of an asshole than the other guy. So I'm just confused that he was the racist and not the other one. It's like they were suggesting that if you're an asshole, you get to a certain point, then you're a racist. Then if you become even more of an asshole, even the racists don't want you.
That's an interesting theorem.
Your guy's so much of an asshole, he's not even a racist. God damn it.
It was interesting.
Yeah,
at least it wasn't misogynistic, too.
Oh, it was incredibly misogynistic. But with that, it actually got more misogynistic as it went on, as in a lot of other areas it got more PC, because Callahan started out as a sort of character that you didn't get really in the early 80s. A completely, I don't want to say independent, strong woman, because that kind of insinuates that most women aren't, so I really don't want to say that, but she's defined by several different things. She does her job really fucking well, and everyone wants to have sex with her, but and if she wants to have sex with you, she will have sex with you, not in a rapey type of way, but just because she's so attractive, you will want to have sex with her. And I almost got the feeling that in an original draft, Callahan was scripted just as almost like a James Bondish character, but male character. But they did some light rewrites in the first one's script, because she is portrayed very much as a classically masculine character. And I know some people are going to get angry at me for this, but one thing I like to say whenever if you're writing a script, this is my advice for cisexual, heterosexual, white, straight people. Especially men, if you're writing a script, write everyone to be exactly the same as you, because if you try to write minority characters that you are not, then the chances are they will come across as cutouts.
Oh, like Stephen Moffat and women.
Yeah, they will come out as
I can't get pregnant, so let's break up because I don't love you anymore, because I can't give you a baby, because I love you so much, but you won't love me, so let's break up. Don't tell the doctor.
Yeah, so you will have shit like that happen to you unless you have done a lot of observing of human nature. And honestly, a lot of people haven't done that. So it's much simpler just to write everyone as a straight, heterosexual, white person, preferably a male. Then choose 4 or 5 random ones and change them into either black, a woman, gay, something, and then just do light rewrites of the script in order to change that, and in order to make everything make sense. And then you will have far better chance of coming up with actual characters who are minorities rather than if you try to write a black character or a woman character or a gay character. Your characters might come across as white straight men in other bodies, but I think you have a better chance of writing an actual character than if you try it the other way around. So write a character first, then worry about that shit.
See, I totally do it the opposite way, but then I'm not a white, straight man, so...
Well, yeah, and this is going to possibly get someone annoyed as well. Someone who is in the minority is forced to observe the majority about 90% of the time. So they are going to be in tune with differences between different social groups automatically. It's just a side effect of being in a minority. So I think you'll be okay with it. But guys who are cisexual, who are straight, who are white, they have had the least opportunity to have to walk in someone else's shoes.
You do realize that we're going to get hate mail over this, with a whole bunch of people saying, that's not true because I've done things and stuff. So before anyone gets pissed off, we don't mean you personally.
I'm just talking generally. And besides, if Stephen Moffat if someone had told Stephen Moffat
if you're Stephen Moffat, write the show.
If someone had told Stephen Moffat this shit years ago, then maybe Amy Pond and everyone would not be stuck with woman written by Stephen Moffat-itis.
Syndrome.
That'd
be really great if her song was like,
yeah.
Doctor, I can't get pregnant, because I'm technically already dead, so I can't be in love with you anymore. Don't tell Amy and Roy.
Well, one of these days, in one of my Twitty reviews, I'm going to talk about this, because one of the things that Russell T Davies has in spades over Stephen Moffat is his ability to write characters who are not the same as him, and this is directly because he's gay, because he has had to observe the differences between himself and straight men, and then he is more easily able to work out the differences between women and men, between different people of different races, while Stephen Moffat sees everything from the perspective of straight white man who is horny and is quite usually funny and is very convinced he's incredibly intelligent when he's actually a little bit less intelligent than he thinks he is.
That would imply that Stephen Moffat is horny all the time.
He is. Trust me.
Really?
Based on his writing, he is.
Oh, okay. I thought you heard an interview or something.
No, he's obsessed with it. It's like Kevin Smith in Star Wars.
So anyway, I think what our main thesis was,
or J.R.R. Tolkien and elves.
But there's no such thing as an elf minority.
No, he's got a subject he's obsessed with. His mind is just stuck in that sort of mode.
Okay, for a second I thought you were going to say that elves were like oppressed minorities, and I'd be like, wait a minute.
Well,
there's no elves.
I don't know, maybe they are. They are in Mordor.
If you're an elf and you've been oppressed, right there. But anyway,
if you're going to watch all the Police Academy movies, maybe look at them as a time capsule of the time they were made. Ignore 7 because honestly,
it's crap, really.
You have enough pain in your life as it is.
And with that, it's time for the dictionary. I've got it with me. We skipped it last week. Honey, what page did
dictionary.
Stop that. What page should I turn to?
72.
All right. Did you say 72 last time?
I have no idea.
I think you did. Hold on, let me see what page 72 is. No, I don't think you did. All right, 1 or 2?
2.
Out of 18.
15.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 15. Box. A container with a flat base and usually a lid for holding solids. The amount it contains. A box-like receptacle, a money box, mailbox, etc. A compartment. As with seats for several persons in a theater, for a horse in a stable or vehicle, for the jury or witness in a law court. And it goes on and on and on and on. So, box.
Okay.
So next week we're going to be thinking outside the box.
I'm sure I can make that rude.
I'm completely sure you can make that rude, honey. But for now, it's been episode 31. I've been the Omega. Before she gets a chance to say who she's been DMI.